Hey, before we dive in, tell me, what time is it where you're watching, and where in the world are you right now?
The great hall of Vareth Keep breathed shadows. Candles flickered against walls carved from black stone, their flames bending in submission to the wind that never seemed to die in this place. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness, and the air smelled faintly of iron and old roses. Nyx sat upon the obsidian dais, legs crossed, fingers clasped beneath her chin. Around her, the other vampires stood in quiet reverence, elegant, lethal, and deathly still. None dared to speak until she did. "Tell me again," she said softly, voice like the blade of a knife dragged through silk. "Why the wolves would risk breaking the treaty?" The messenger flinched. "The boy, my lady. They believe the mortal carries something, some fragment of the old blood. They hunt him now." A ripple of disdain crossed her face. Mortals and their endless curses. What would they gain from his death? Power. Enough to wake the old gods, perhaps. Enough to end our kind. The room fell silent. Then Nyx rose. Her gown whispered against the marble floor as she descended the dais, the hem trailing like a pool of black water. The scent of her perfume, smoke and crushed lilac, followed her. Every gaze followed, too. "They think they can take him," she murmured, half to herself. "Then we will take him first." Her second in command, a tall woman with crimson hair, tilted her head. "Will you kill him, my lady?" Nyx paused by the arched window, moonlight catching the sharp edge of her cheekbone. "Not yet. He's more useful breathing. And besides," she smiled faintly, fangs glinting, "mortals scream too easily when they know what's coming." A low chuckle rippled through the chamber. But her mind wasn't on cruelty. It was on efficiency. The boy's bloodline, his pulse, his ignorance. She needed him contained before the wolves reached him. A war between species would undo centuries of her kind's careful control. Outside the fortress, the valley slept beneath a silver sky. Nyx stood atop the rampart, wind tugging at her hair as she looked toward the mortal lands. The horizon glowed faintly gold from distant villages, tiny fires flickering against the night. She hated that light. But she would step into it, just this once. "Prepare the horses," she ordered, "and send word to the High Council. If I do not return before dawn, seal the keep." Her second in command hesitated. "Alone?" Nyx's crimson eyes flicked toward her. "Do you doubt me?" The woman immediately lowered her head. "Never, my lady." Nyx turned away before the guilt could show in her face. She did doubt something herself, or rather, the echo that had haunted her dreams for weeks. A heartbeat that wasn't her own, calling from the mortal realm. Perhaps this boy, this Darius, wasn't a coincidence at all. Later that night, under the hollow moon, she mounted her horse and left Vareth Keep behind, the gates shut with a groan that sounded almost like mourning. She didn't look back. Her path cut through the mist-choked woods, where the trees leaned too close and the earth drank light. Wolves howled in the distance, not her enemies, not yet, but they would be soon enough. She pressed on, eyes fixed ahead, a queen of shadows riding into forbidden lands. Somewhere beyond the valley, a mortal boy slept soundly, unaware that every creature of the dark had just placed a target upon his heart. And she was the only one standing between him and a fate worse than death, for now. The morning began like any other in the small riverside town of Corvin. Smoke curled from crooked chimneys, merchants shouted over the din of wooden wheels, and sunlight streamed down through pale mist, gilding the cobblestones in gold. And somewhere between the scent of bread and the chatter of life, a man tripped over a chicken. Bloody hell! Darius swore, catching himself on a barrel before he could eat dirt. The chicken squawked and strutted off with more dignity than he had left. The baker snorted from behind his stall. "You all right there, scholar?" Darius brushed off his vest and smiled sheepishly. "Perfectly fine, thank you. Just conducting a gravity experiment." "You keep saying that every time you fall, lad." "Yes, well," Darius said, straightening his shirt. "Gravity keeps winning. The townsfolk liked him. Even if he was a bit of an oddball, too clever for the town, too clumsy for his own good. He worked as a copyist, transcribing old manuscripts for the local library, and spent his evenings half asleep over tea and candlelight, writing about myths he didn't believe in. At least, He hadn't believed in them until the nightmares began. Lately, his dreams had turned strange. Flashes of red eyes, the sound of wolves growling, the feel of cold fingers brushing his throat. Sometimes he woke up gasping, his heart racing, his hand pressed against the faint scar on his cheek like it meant something. But when he looked out his window at the quiet river, everything always looked normal again, safe, human. He poured himself another cup of tea and muttered, "See? Nothing mysterious here. Just a handsome, mildly underpaid genius minding his business." He didn't notice the raven watching him from the windowsill. Its eyes were bright and intelligent, almost knowing. That night, the town slept early, wrapped in fog. Darius worked late, candlelight soft against parchment. He'd been tasked with translating an old text brought in by travelers. Something about the blood of dawn and the curse of the wolf. His quill hovered mid-word as he frowned. Blood of dawn. That's poetic, I'll give it that. Probably about a ritual or something. He dipped the quill again, but the moment he wrote the next word, Nyx, the candle guttered violently. He froze. "All right," he whispered to no one. Nope, not ominous at all. Then the window blew open. Papers scattered like startled birds, the flames snuffed out, and the raven from earlier swooped in, landing on the desk. It dropped something, a small black ring, and croaked once before vanishing back into the fog. Darius stared at the ring. "Well, this is how cursed objects get people killed," he muttered. Because of course he talked to himself. He picked it up anyway. It was ice cold to the touch, the metal engraved with intricate symbols he didn't recognize. When he slipped it onto his finger for a closer look, he swore he heard something whisper his name. Darius. He froze again. Okay, great, love that. Whispering jewelry. Totally fine. Absolutely normal day. He yanked it off and threw it across the table. It hit a book, Legends of the Night Court, and fell to the floor. The sound it made was oddly final, like a lock clicking shut. And somewhere in the forest, miles away, Nyx's head snapped up. "Found him," she murmured from atop her horse. Her eyes gleamed like twin embers in the night. The pull she'd felt in her chest all day, that strange magnetic thread, had just snapped taut. The mortal had done something. Activated something, and she could already smell the wolves moving in. She urged her horse forward, faster, through the silver fog. The night wind tangled her hair and tugged at her cloak. She didn't care. If the wolves reached him first, everything she had built, her world, her immortality, could unravel. But what she didn't expect, not yet, was that this fragile, clueless mortal would do more than ruin her plans. He would change her. Meanwhile, Darius had decided the best solution to mysterious rings and ghost whispers was denial. He packed up, muttering, "Nope, not today. Not dealing with curses. Not dying before breakfast." He was halfway down the library stairs when the hairs on his neck rose. The door creaked open, but no one was there. Only fog. Hello? No answer. Just the faintest sound of footsteps in the mist. Then a growl. Not a dog's growl. Something bigger. He froze, staring into the fog until two golden eyes blinked back at him. "Doggy?" He tried weakly. The answer was a snarl. He bolted. By the time Nyx arrived at the edge of the town, the fog had thickened. She could smell blood, his blood. Not enough to kill, but enough to tell her she was almost too late. She dismounted, silent as smoke, eyes burning crimson as she moved through the streets. She found him in the alley, pressed against a wall, a broken lantern in his shaking hand. Two werewolves prowled before him, half-shifted, their claws glinting in the moonlight. "Oh gods, please let this be a weird dream," Darius whimpered. "Not quite," Nyx said coolly from behind the wolves. Her voice cut through the air like a blade. The creatures turned, too slow. In one fluid motion, she appeared between them, her hand plunging through one's chest, the other's throat opening under her nails. They fell like sacks of stone. Darius blinked, once, twice. "Are you an angel?" Nyx turned, eyes glowing red, fangs slick with blood. "Hardly," he squeaked. "Okay, not an angel, got it. totally not terrified. She looked him over, unimpressed. "You're bleeding." "I do that sometimes." "Mortals," she muttered, grabbing his arm before he could faint. "You're coming with me. Well, wait, who even are you?" "The one keeping you alive, apparently." And with that, she dragged him out of the fog. The moon watched silently as the vampire and the trembling mortal vanished into the night, their paths now tangled in ways neither could undo. Darius had always believed his life would end in some forgettable way, probably tripping over a cart and landing face first in the river. Never in his wildest, most sleep-deprived imaginings had he pictured being dragged through a fog-drenched forest by a moody immortal with murder eyes and absolutely no concept of personal space. Her hand was clamped tight around his wrist, cold as marble, pulling him through gnarled roots and shadows that seemed to breathe. "Could you, maybe slow down a little?" he wheezed. "Not all of us have the physique of a bat goddess." Nyx didn't even look back. "You'd be dead if I slowed down." "Okay, but you're about 5 seconds away from pulling my arm off." "I could carry you instead," she said flatly. "Actually, I'll run faster." Her expression didn't change, but he could have sworn the corner of her lip twitched, almost a smirk. They arrived at a small clearing where moonlight pooled like liquid silver. An old chapel stood there, swallowed by ivy and time. Its steeple was broken, the doors crooked, but it still carried an air of reverence, the kind built into the bones of old places that remembered prayers. Nyx pushed the doors open. The hinges screamed. "Inside," she ordered. "Right, yes. After you, terrifying lady who murders wolves with her hands." He stepped in cautiously. Dust floated in the air like faint ghosts. Candles long dead littered the floor, and a tattered banner bearing an ancient crest sagged from the rafters. "Wow," he said softly. Didn't realize vampires were into crumbling architecture. She turned, her red eyes flashing faintly in the gloom. "It's abandoned, which means quiet. Which means safe, unless you keep talking." "Got it." Silence. Totally my strength. She ignored him and moved to the altar, removing her gloves. Darius watched her, torn between awe and fear. The way she moved, graceful, lethal, like a creature carved from shadow, was hypnotic. "So," he began carefully, "you save me, drag me into a haunted church, and don't even offer tea?" She stopped, glancing over her shoulder. "You're remarkably calm for someone who nearly became wolf food." "Oh, I'm not calm. I'm internally screaming." That earned him the smallest, most reluctant sound. A quiet exhale that might have been a laugh if she hadn't strangled it halfway through. He grinned. Proof of humor. I knew it existed somewhere under all that brooding." "Keep talking," she said dryly, "and I'll remove your tongue." Still worth it. The night deepened. Outside, the forest sighed and shifted, carrying whispers of distant howls. Darius sat on the cold stone floor, rubbing the faint scratch on his arm where a wolf's claw had grazed him. He looked up at her, perched by the altar with her sword laid across her lap, the moonlight kissing her hair. "So, vampires. You really drink blood?" "Yes," he hesitated. "Human blood?" Her eyes lifted, cold and unblinking. "Do you have another kind? Animal? Tomato juice?" "I don't know, I'm brainstorming here." Her gaze lingered on him for a moment too long, then dropped. "I don't kill. Not anymore." Something softened in her tone, barely perceptible but real. Darius caught it, sensing a story beneath her words. "You sound like you've lived a long time." "I have. And I'm tired." He blinked. "That's unexpectedly depressing." "You asked?" "Fair. I just didn't expect the emotional trauma to come free with my rescue." For the first time, she actually smiled. It wasn't warm. Nyx didn't do warm. But it cracked her composure. Her fangs peaked slightly as she murmured, "You're strange for a mortal." "Yeah. People say that a lot." After a while, the silence between them shifted. No longer awkward, just there, a strange, cautious peace. Darius eventually curled up near the ruined window, his head resting against his arm. His breathing steadied. Nyx watched him for a moment. He looked harmless, too harmless. Lean, slightly pale, fingers ink-stained from his scribe work. There was a faint trace of courage beneath the foolishness, something raw and painfully human. She turned away, unwilling to admit the pull she felt toward it. He stirred in his sleep and mumbled something. Her name. Her chest tightened. For a creature who'd long stopped believing her name could sound gentle, hearing it from him was almost unbearable. She reached out instinctively, then stopped herself, fingers curling midair. What was she doing? Getting attached to him? She withdrew her hand and looked toward the cracked ceiling. The moonlight cut through the dust, landing across her face like a scar. "Your trouble. Mortal," she whispered, and outside, in the distance, a low howl echoed through the night, closer this time. She rose silently, her expression darkening. The wolves were hunting again. They had caught the scent, and she had no idea how much blood she'd have to spill to keep him alive. The night had teeth. Darius woke to the sound of it, a low, distant rumble that didn't belong to thunder. His eyes snapped open, finding the chapel lit only by a fading sliver of moonlight through the broken roof. Nyx was still by the altar, motionless, her eyes shut. For a moment, she almost looked human, peaceful. Then the howling began again, closer. "Nyx," he whispered, sitting up. Her eyes opened instantly, red and gleaming. She didn't even blink. "They found us." Before he could ask who they were, something slammed against the chapel door. Wood splintered. The echo rolled through the room like a drumbeat of doom. "Oh no," Darius muttered, backing up. "I vote we run, immediately, before they—" The door burst open. A massive shape filled the entryway, half man, half beast, with claws like daggers and eyes that burned gold in the dark. It snarled, the sound vibrating in Darius's bones. Nyx moved faster than thought. Her hand shot out, shoving Darius behind a pillar just as the first wolf lunged. Stone cracked where she'd stood. She met it head-on, her blade flashing silver in the moonlight. "Stay down," she barked. "Wasn't planning on doing anything else," he yelled back, clutching the pillar for dear life. Another wolf crashed through the window, glass shattering like ice. Nyx turned, slicing through the air, her blade cutting deep. Blood sprayed against the wall, dark, gleaming, and hot. But there were too many. Darius peeked from behind the stone, his heart hammering. She was a blur, fangs bared, eyes glowing, moving with a deadly rhythm that was almost beautiful. Every motion was precise, deliberate, fueled by centuries of instinct. Then one of the beasts struck her from the side. "Nyx!" She stumbled, claws raking across her shoulder. The scent of her blood hit the air, sharp as iron. She hissed, spinning to drive her blade through its chest. But she was slower now, pain tightening her movements. Darius didn't think. He grabbed the fallen lantern beside him and threw it. It hit a pillar, bursting into flame. The wolves hesitated, snarling at the sudden light. "Come on," Darius shouted, grabbing Nyx's arm. "Move!" Her head snapped toward him, fury and disbelief warring in her eyes. But she let him pull her toward the back door. They stumbled out into the cold night, smoke rising behind them as the chapel caught fire. They ran. Branches whipped their faces. The forest glowed orange behind them. When they finally stopped by the riverbank, Nyx fell to one knee, her hand pressed against her bleeding shoulder. Let me see that," Darius said breathlessly. "Don't," she snapped. "Don't what? Help you?" "Too late for that, sunshine." She gave him a glare so venomous he half expected to burst into flames on the spot. But he crouched beside her anyway. His hands trembled as he tore part of his vest and pressed it to her wound. She hissed in pain, grabbing his wrist. "I told you." Yeah, you hate help, you're immortal, whatever," he said softly. "Hold still." Her grip loosened. She watched him silently, confusion flickering behind the crimson glow of her eyes. No one had touched her like that in years. Not with fear or reverence, but with care. "Clumsy, stupid, mortal care. Does it hurt?" he asked quietly. She almost laughed. "Of course it hurts." "Good. Means you're still here." He gave her a small smile. Tired, crooked, annoyingly sincere. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Her pulse, faint but steady, matched the rhythm of his. The world around them had gone still. Only the soft murmur of the river and the crackle of distant fire filled the silence. Then she leaned forward. Just slightly. Darius froze, breath catching. Her face was inches from his, her red eyes softer now, searching his. "Darius," she murmured, her voice low. "Yes." She hesitated. Then instead of kissing him, she whispered near his ear, "If you ever do something that stupid again, I'll drain you myself." He blinked, disappointed and relieved all at once. Noted. But when she turned away, he caught it. The faintest, ghostly smile she tried to hide. They stayed there until dawn crept across the trees. The world smelled of smoke and wet moss. Nyx's wound had begun to close, unnaturally fast. Darius, slumped beside her, had fallen asleep sitting up, his head tilted toward her shoulder. For once, she didn't move him away. She looked at him, the faint scar on his cheek, the ink stains still on his fingers. Harmless, fragile, completely unaware of what he really was. She traced a finger through the air near his hand, almost touching, but not. "You have no idea what you're worth," she whispered. And the worst part was, neither did she. The river carried the last of the smoke away. By the time dawn had sharpened into day, the forest was silent again. Too silent. Nyx moved through it with the same graceful precision she'd always had, but her shoulder still ached beneath the half-healed wound. Darius followed her, stumbling occasionally over roots and cursing under his breath. "How much further?" he asked for the 5th time. She didn't turn. "You'll know when we're there." He looked around at the endless trees. "You said that an hour ago." "I say it every hour until we arrive. It's part of the ritual." He narrowed his eyes. "You're joking." Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Wouldn't you like to think so?" By noon, they reached what looked like nothing, just an abandoned clearing where sunlight filtered through dust and moss. Darius was about to complain again when Nyx stopped before a half-dead oak. "Stay behind me," she said. He opened his mouth to ask why, but she was already pressing her palm against the bark. The air shimmered, light bending like glass. A doorway appeared where there had been none, carved from shadow and old stone. Darius gawked. "Oh yeah, totally normal, just a magic tree door in the woods." "Be quiet," she muttered, pulling him inside. The tunnel beyond was cold and narrow, lined with runes that glowed faintly red as they passed. The air smelled of iron and dust. Eventually, it opened into a vast underground hall, lit by lanterns filled with bloodlight, crimson and gold flames that never went out. Dozens of vampires moved among the shadows, elegant, lethal, whispering in tongues Darius didn't know. He swallowed hard and edged closer to Nyx. "Relax," she said without looking at him. "They won't touch you. Not while you're under my protection." "That's oddly comforting," he muttered. "Kind of." Her gaze flicked toward him, unreadable. "Stay close. Don't speak unless spoken to." "Oh, so just like dinner with my father." She gave him a look that could have frozen sunlight. They entered a chamber carved deep into the stone, the walls draped in black silk and silver chains. A tall figure stood waiting. A vampire older than Nyx with eyes like dying stars. "Nyx," he said, "you were told to stay away from the mortal world." "I don't take orders, Varen," she replied, her tone cutting. "Especially not when they are hunting him." His gaze slid to Darius. "So this is the boy. He doesn't look like much." "Thanks," Darius said weakly. "Really appreciate the warm welcome." Varen ignored him. "You're playing a dangerous game, Nyx. If the wolves get to him first..." "They won't," she snapped. "Not while I breathe." He tilted his head. "You're getting attached." Her jaw tightened. "I'm getting results." Later, when they were alone, Darius sat on the edge of a cold stone cot in a small room they'd been given. He looked around at the dark walls, the faint red glow from the ceiling. "So," he said finally, "when you said refuge, I pictured something a little cozier." Maybe a bed that isn't rock. Would you like me to fluff it with corpses? She asked, deadpan. He laughed, a sound that actually made her glance at him. You're terrifying. Good. He leaned back against the wall, still grinning. You know, for someone who keeps insisting she doesn't care, you sure save me a lot. Her expression didn't change, but her pulse ticked faster. She could hear it. You'd die otherwise, and you'd hate that? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. You're insufferable, he smiled softly. You didn't answer. For the first time, she didn't look away. The silence stretched between them, heavy and delicate all at once. Then she sighed, quiet, reluctant, and sat beside him. Hours later, when the lanterns dimmed and most of the refuge slept, Nyx found herself awake. Darius had drifted off, his head resting awkwardly against the wall, breath steady. She shouldn't have cared. She told herself that 100 times. But when his body leaned a little closer, his head falling gently against her shoulder, she didn't move. She stayed perfectly still, eyes on the dark ceiling, heartbeat betraying her calm. You're going to get me killed, she whispered. Already tried, he murmured in his sleep, making her freeze. Then softly, she laughed, really laughed for the first time in years. It echoed off the stone like something alive again. By morning, Varen summoned them again. His tone was grim. The wolves have crossed the valley. They'll find this refuge within days. Nyx's eyes darkened. We'll move before they do. Varen looked at her, then at Darius. You can't keep him hidden forever. You know what he carries. Darius frowned. What I carry? What does that mean? Nyx cut in quickly. Enough, he turned to her. No. You keep saying I'm important, but never why. What am I? Her silence was sharper than any blade. Finally, she said, something that should never have existed. He stepped back, eyes wide. Wow, thanks for clearing that up. Darius, no. Really, I feel so much better now. She moved toward him, but he brushed past her, storming out into the torchlit hall. Nyx stood there, her heart pounding. Though it hadn't done that in centuries, she didn't follow. Not yet, because if she told him the truth now, he'd never look at her the same way again. The refuge slept under layers of stone and silence. But Darius couldn't. He wandered through the narrow corridors, the torches burning low and sickly. Every sound, dripping water, distant whispers, seemed to echo too loud, like the walls themselves were listening. He was angry. Not the kind that shouted, but the kind that sat behind your ribs and burned slow. All he'd wanted was answers. And all she gave him were riddles, something that should never have existed. What the hell did that even mean? He rounded a corner and nearly tripped over someone. Varen, the elder vampire, emerging from the shadows like he'd been waiting. You shouldn't wander alone. Boy, Varen said, voice smooth as cold wine. Darius straightened. Yeah, well, I'm getting used to bad decisions. Varen's lips twitched. You're brave for a mortal. Guess that's better than being stupid. The old vampire stepped closer, his eyes reflecting the red glow. Do you even know why she guards you so fiercely? Darius crossed his arms. Because I'm apparently important, Varen smiled faintly. You are not merely important, Darius. You are the vessel. The what now? The heart of an ancient pact, blood older than any of us. You carry the essence of what they all crave. Vampire and wolf alike, Darius blinked. That sounds bad. It is. Because whoever spills your blood, Varen said quietly, takes the power of both. He felt his stomach twist. So basically, I'm a walking magical snack. Varen didn't answer, and that silence was answer enough. When he returned to the chamber, Nyx was waiting, leaning against the wall, her arms crossed. Expression unreadable. You spoke to him, she said flatly. Oh, good, you're psychic too. Her jaw tightened. What did he tell you? Everything you wouldn't. He took a step closer. I'm not stupid, Nyx. You've been hiding it since the start. Her gaze met his, steady, but faintly pained. You shouldn't have gone to him. Because he told me the truth? Because he'll use it. He laughed, sharp, tired. Use what, me? Everyone already wants to. Her voice dropped, cold and trembling. You think I don't know that? You think I haven't killed for you already? The words hit him like a slap. You what? She took a step forward. Every wolf that's found you, every tracker that smelled your blood, I've ended them before they could reach you. Why? His voice cracked. Why go through all this if I'm just some cursed vessel? Her eyes softened just for a breath. Because I couldn't watch them take you. He swallowed, heart pounding. Nix, she shook her head. You don't understand. I was sent to guard you until the ritual, to deliver you alive when the moon turns red. Deliver me to who? Her silence said everything. He stepped closer, his anger melting into something smaller, sadder. So what then? You bring me in like a lamb to slaughter and pretend it's duty? Her lips parted, but no sound came. He was too close now, his eyes searching hers. Blue and defiant, trembling but sure. You could have let me die 12 times, he said quietly. But you didn't, her breath hitched. That was a mistake, he smiled faintly. Yeah, you keep making it. Then he kissed her. It wasn't perfect. More shock than grace. His hands trembling against her waist, her lips cold and still for a moment before she gave in. The world shrank to the sound of her breath and the faint metallic taste of her tears. When she finally pulled away, her eyes were glowing, wide, terrified. Don't, she whispered. Don't make this harder. Too late, he murmured. I think I already did. She looked at him for a long, aching moment. Then she turned away. The ritual is in 3 nights, she said. And if you stay with me, you'll die. He smiled sadly. If I leave, I'll die faster. Her hands curled into fists. You don't understand what you are. Maybe not, he said softly. But I know what you are. And I trust you. That broke her. Just a little. Enough for her shoulders to shake once. Enough for her to whisper his name like it hurt. That night, when she thought he'd fallen asleep, Nick stood by the edge of the stone bed, watching him. He looked so fragile, the scar on his cheek, the way he clutched his jacket even in sleep. Her fingers brushed a lock of his hair away from his face. Trembling, foolish mortal, she whispered, voice breaking. Why did you have to make me care? She leaned down and kissed his forehead. The kind of kiss meant to say goodbye without saying it aloud. Because tomorrow, she would have to choose between the world and him. And she already hated herself for knowing which choice she'd make. The world bled red. The moon hung low over the valley, swollen and crimson, its reflection rippling across the black water of the lake. Every creature that crawled, howled, or flew could feel it, the pulse of ancient magic waking from its slumber. And beneath that blood-lit sky, Darius stood at the center of a ruined temple, wrists bound with silver chains that hissed against his skin. He wasn't scared anymore, not really, just tired. The air around him shimmered with power. Runes carved into the stones glowed faintly, feeding off the moonlight. At the edge of the dais, Nyx stood motionless, her pale face half hidden by the shadow of her hood. Varen's voice cut through the silence like a blade. It begins. The blood of dawn meets the curse of night. The vessel fulfills the pact. Vessel, Darius muttered under his breath, smiling bitterly. Great title. Wonder if I get dental with that. Varen ignored him, raising the ceremonial dagger, long curved, black as obsidian. The crowd of vampires and half-turned creatures stirred. The air smelled of metal and rain. Nyx finally spoke, her voice sharp as cracked glass. You promised no harm would come to him. Varen's eyes gleamed. No harm to you, my dear. You've done your duty. She realized then that he had never needed her alive after this. She was merely the means, the loyal blade to carry the lamb to slaughter. Her hands clenched at her sides. You won't touch him, Varen smiled. You forget who made you. Lightning split the sky. Darius felt it before he saw it. That strange burning inside his veins, the same pulse he'd felt since the ring appeared. His blood thrummed with the same rhythm as the moon. The runes beneath his feet blazed brighter. Varen stepped forward, the dagger gleaming red. The blood of dawn belongs to no one, Nyx roared. She moved faster than light. The first vampire didn't even scream before her blade severed his throat. The second fell with a burst of sparks as her power exploded outward, knocking the others back. Shadows and silver clashed. Screams filled the air. "Nyx," Darius shouted, struggling against the chains. "Stay still," she yelled, cutting down another. But Varen was stronger. He caught her strike with one hand, twisting her wrist until the bone cracked. The dagger slipped from her fingers, landing near Darius's feet. "You were always too human," Varen hissed. Blood dripped from her lip as she grinned. "And you were always too afraid to be." He struck her, hard. She hit the stone floor, gasping. Darius's heart thundered. He didn't think. He never thought when it came to her. He yanked against the chains again, the silver burning deep into his flesh, until something inside him snapped. The chains shattered. The force threw him to the ground, his breath ripping out of him like fire. His hands glowed faint gold, not the color of magic, but sunlight. The blood of dawn. Varen turned, eyes wide. "Impossible." Darius grabbed the dagger. "Yeah," he said hoarsely. "I get that a lot." He drove it straight through Varen's chest. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the air cracked open. The runes flared white. The temple walls split. Every creature screamed as the blood moon blazed brighter than ever before. Varen collapsed, his body turning to ash, and then everything went quiet. Darius stumbled forward, dizzy. The world around him flickered between red and pale gold. He saw Nyx lying near the steps, blood seeping through her torn dress. He fell beside her. "Hey," he whispered, shaking her gently. "No dying. I'm the human here, remember?" Her eyes fluttered open, still crimson, but faint, fading. "You broke the chains." "Yeah. Turns out I'm bad at following rules." She gave a weak smile. "The curse is gone. You freed them all. Good," he said softly. "Now it's your turn." Her hand lifted, trembling, brushing against his cheek. "You don't understand, Darius. I was born of the curse. Without it," he felt it then, her body growing colder, lighter. She was fading with the blood moon. "No," he said, voice breaking. "No, you're not doing this," she smiled faintly. "You gave me back my soul." "That's enough," he gripped her hand tighter. "Then take mine too." Her eyes softened, glowing one last time. "Foolish mortal." And then she was gone. The moon dimmed to silver. The ruins fell silent. Only Darius remained, sitting in the dust, her cloak clutched in his hands, the dawn rising slow and golden behind him.
If you want me to keep writing stories like this, hit subscribe. It really keeps me going.